Marcus Rivera's hands shook as he counted the crumpled bills in his wallet. 6.75 from last night's tips at Romano's restaurant. 14 hours on his feet, serving entitled customers who barely looked at him. But every dollar mattered when your 7-year-old son needed a $47,000 heart surgery. The morning coffee shop buzzed with the usual crowd. Lawyers in $2,000 suits, tech executives on phones worth more than Marcus made in a month. He scanned the packed cafe, his janitorial uniform drawing sideways glances. There, in the corner, sat the only empty chair at a table where a woman in an elegant black dress typed furiously on a MacBook. Marcus approached slowly, his work boots squeaking against the polished floor. "Excuse me, ma'am. Would it be okay if I—" She looked up, and Marcus felt his breath catch. Striking green eyes, auburn hair pulled into a perfect bun, the kind of natural beauty that money couldn't buy. But it was her expression that stopped him cold, recognition, as if she'd seen a ghost. "Don't I know you?" Victoria Sterling asked, her voice softer than expected for someone who'd graced the cover of Forbes 3 months running. Her tech company, Sterling Innovations, was valued at $3.2 billion. Marcus's throat went dry. "I don't think so, ma'am. I'm just—" "You're Marcus Rivera." Not a question, a statement that made his knees weak. The coffee cup in his hand trembled. How could this woman, this CEO who lived in a world of penthouses and private jets, possibly know his name? He cleaned office buildings at night. He was invisible. He was nobody. "How do you—" "Please, sit." She closed the laptop, giving him her full attention. That little boy who comes to Danny's diner every Sunday morning, 7 years old, orders the same chocolate chip pancakes. That's your son. Marcus slumped into the chair, his mind reeling. She'd been watching them? I don't understand. Victoria smiled, and for a moment she didn't look like a billionaire. She looked like someone who understood loneliness. "I eat there sometimes, when I need to remember where I came from." Her fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. "I've seen you count your tips to pay for his breakfast. I've seen you give him your bacon when you think he's not looking." The cafe noise faded to a whisper. Marcus stared at this woman who somehow knew his most private moments, his daily struggles, his deepest love. "Why are you telling me this?" Before Victoria could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face hardened. "I'm sorry. I have to—" "Victoria Sterling?" A man's voice cut through the air. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Marcus's rent. "Richard Blackwood, Blackwood Holdings. I've been trying to reach you about the merger." Victoria's jaw tightened. "Not now, Richard." But Richard's eyes had found Marcus, taking in the uniform, the worn boots, the calloused hands. His lip curled. "I see you're busy with the help." He turned to Marcus. "Coffee refills are at the counter, boy." The word boy hit like a physical blow. Marcus's hands clenched into fists, but he'd learned long ago that fighting only made things worse. He started to rise. "Sit down." Victoria's voice carried steel. She stood, all 5'6" of her radiating authority. "Mr. Blackwood, meet Marcus Rivera, a better man than you'll ever be." Richard laughed, the sound grating. "Really, Victoria? Slumming it won't help your image." Marcus's vision went red. He stood slowly, his 6-foot frame towering over the older man. For 17 years, he'd swallowed his pride, taken the insults, stayed quiet. But not today. Not in front of her. "My name," Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet, "is Mr. Rivera. And the only reason I'm not teaching you manners is because there are ladies present." The cafe went silent. Victoria's eyes widened, not with fear, but with something that made Marcus's heart race. Admiration. Richard's face turned purple. "Do you know who I am? I could have you fired from whatever menial—" "You could try." Marcus stepped closer. "But I work nights, Mr. Blackwood. I clean the offices where men like you make their dirty deals. I see what gets left in trash cans. Financial documents that shouldn't exist. Photos that would end careers." He smiled. cold as winter. Amazing what people throw away. The threat hung in the air. Richard's bluster crumbled. Without another word, he fled. Marcus turned back to Victoria, expecting her to be gone. Instead, she was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. 17 years, she said quietly. What? You said you've been swallowing your pride for 17 years. Why 17? Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest. That's how old Danny would be if... He stopped. He never talked about this. My wife died when he was born. Complications. 7 years ago, the doctor said his heart might not make it past 10 without surgery. Victoria's hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching his. And you've been working 3 jobs ever since. 4 now. Marcus pulled out his phone, showing her a picture of Danny grinning on his first day of school. He doesn't know how sick he is. Still believes his dad can fix anything. Can you? She asked. Fix it, I mean. Do you have the money for surgery? Marcus laughed bitterly. $47,000. I've saved $12,000 in 3 years. At this rate, Danny will... He couldn't finish. Victoria picked up her phone, her fingers flying across the screen. Dr. Peterson at Children's Hospital. He's the best pediatric cardiac surgeon on the West Coast. I know. He's the one who quoted me the price I can't afford. She held up one finger, phone to her ear. James? Victoria Sterling, I need you to clear your schedule next week. Yes, it's urgent. A 7-year-old named Danny Rivera. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. No, I don't need charity. Victoria met his eyes, her gaze steady. It's not charity. It's recognition. Of what? Of who you are. Who you've always been. She pulled up something on her phone, an old newspaper clipping. Miguel Rivera saved 14 people from an apartment fire in 1987. Refused the hero medal because he said he was just doing his job. That was your father. Marcus's world tilted. How could you possibly? Because, Victoria said, her voice barely a whisper. He saved my life that night. I was 5 years old, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. The coffee shop, the people, everything disappeared. Marcus stared at this woman who held his son's future in her hands and his family's past in her memory. The little girl, he breathed. The one Dad used to talk about. The one who asked if angels were real. Victoria smiled, tears in her eyes. And he said, angels wear overalls and work overtime. I never forgot. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Not break, crack open. Like something that had been locked away for too long. Victoria, he started, but she was already standing. I have to go. Board meeting in 20 minutes. She handed him a business card. But Marcus, this isn't over. Not by a long shot. She walked away, leaving him with a card that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds and a son who might finally have a chance. But as Victoria reached the door, she turned back. One more thing. That merger Richard mentioned? It's with my company. As of tomorrow, he works for me. The smile that crossed her face was worth its weight in gold. Marcus stared at Victoria Sterling's business card for the 5th time that hour. The gold-embossed letters seemed to mock him from his dashboard as he sat outside Danny's elementary school, waiting for pickup. Sterling Innovations, CEO Victoria Sterling. Below that, in smaller font, When Innovation Meets Humanity. His phone buzzed. A text from his boss at the restaurant. Marcus, need you to cover Angela's shift tonight. Double time. Double time meant $240 instead of $120. 16 hours of work instead of 8. But it also meant missing Danny's school play practice, the one he'd promised to attend for 3 weeks straight. Marcus texted back, I'll be there. Another buzz, this one from Dr. Peterson's office. Reminder, Danny Rivera consultation scheduled for next Friday, 2 p.m. Payment arrangements must be finalized before procedure. $47,000. The number haunted him like a ghost. Dad! Danny's voice cut through his dark thoughts. His son bounded toward the truck, backpack bouncing, that gap-toothed grin lighting up Marcus's world. 7 years old and still believed his father hung the moon. "Hey buddy, how was school?" "Mrs. Chen says I'm the best tree in the play." Danny climbed into the passenger seat, his small fingers struggling with the seatbelt. Marcus reached over to help, noting how thin his son had gotten lately. "She says trees are the most important part because they give life to everything else." Marcus's throat tightened. "Mrs. Chen is very smart. Are you coming to practice today? Tommy's dad is bringing donuts and Sarah's mom has juice boxes." The other parents. The ones who drove SUVs and wore clean clothes to pick up. The ones who didn't have to choose between their child's play and putting food on the table. "I have to work tonight, Dan, but I'll be at the real show, I promise." Danny's face fell for just a second before he forced the smile back. At 7, he already understood disappointment too well. "Okay, Dad. Mrs. Chen says trees are patient. They wait for the right season." Marcus pulled into the parking lot of their apartment complex, a far cry from the suburban homes where Danny's classmates lived. Building 4, Unit 2B, 1,200 square feet of hope and heartbreak. "Danny, go start your homework. I need to make some calls." But instead of calling anyone, Marcus sat at their small kitchen table and stared at Victoria Sterling's card. The woman who knew his father. The woman who knew his struggles. The woman who could save his son with a phone call, but whose help felt like another form of begging. His father's voice echoed in his memory. "Miko, a man's worth isn't measured by what he takes, but by what he gives, even when he has nothing left to give." Marcus flipped the card over, in elegant handwriting. "Your father taught me that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear overalls. V." His hand shook as he dialed. Victoria Sterling's office. The voice was crisp, professional. "This is Marcus Rivera. I need to speak with Ms. Sterling." "I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera, but Ms. Sterling is in meetings until... Tell her it's about apartment 3B. A pause. Then, "Please hold." Within 30 seconds, Victoria's voice came through the phone. "Marcus, I can't let you pay for Danny's surgery." The words tumbled out before he could stop them. "I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you're too proud to accept help. I'm too proud to accept charity." What if it wasn't charity? Her voice carried a note of something. Excitement? What if it was a job offer? Marcus frowned. "I already have 4 jobs. I need head of security for Sterling Innovations. Salary, $95,000 annually. Health insurance that covers pre-existing conditions, including pediatric cardiac procedures." The kitchen floor seemed to drop out from under him. "I'm a janitor." "You're also the son of a man who saved 14 lives. You speak 3 languages. You have an associate's degree in business that you earned working nights. You've managed crews of 20 people. And today, you faced down Richard Blackwood without blinking. How do you know all this? I ran a background check after this morning. Sue me." Her laugh was warm, real. "Marcus, I don't need another MBA in a suit who's never worked an honest day in his life. I need someone who understands what's worth protecting." Danny appeared in the kitchen doorway, homework in one hand, pencil in the other. "Dad, I can't remember how to do the math problem about the farm." Marcus covered the phone. "Just a minute, buddy." But Victoria had heard. "Is that Danny?" "Yeah." "Ask him what 7 times 8 equals." Marcus frowned but relayed the question. Danny scrunched his face in concentration. 56, he announced proudly. Victoria's voice came back stronger. "That boy is brilliant, Marcus, and he deserves every chance to grow up and show the world just how brilliant he is. Let me give him that chance. Let me give you both that chance." Marcus closed his eyes. Pride warred with love, and love was winning. "When would I start?" "Monday, 9 a.m., wear a suit, I'll have one sent over. Oh, and Marcus?" "Yeah?" "The first thing I need you to secure is Dr. Peterson's surgical schedule. Think you can handle that?" For the first time in 7 years, Marcus Rivera smiled like he meant it. "Yes, ma'am. I think I can handle that." After he hung up, Danny looked up from his homework. Dad, you look different. Different how? Like you used to look in the pictures with Mom. Happy different. Marcus pulled his son into a hug that lasted exactly 17 seconds, one for each year he'd been holding his breath. But as he held Danny close, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that accepting Victoria Sterling's offer wasn't just changing his job, it was changing everything. And change, even good change, always came with a price. Outside, a black Mercedes parked across the street. The driver made a phone call. He took the bait, Richard Blackwood's voice said through the Bluetooth. Sterling thinks she's so clever, but she has no idea what she's just set in motion. The game was about to begin. The Sterling Innovations building rose 42 floors into the Seattle sky like a glass and steel monument to ambition. Marcus Rivera stood on the sidewalk at 8:45 a.m. Monday morning, adjusting the collar of a suit that fit him better than anything he'd ever owned. The Navy Armani had arrived Saturday with a note. Heroes deserve armor. V. Danny had been beside himself with excitement that morning, insisting on helping tie his father's tie. Dad, you look like a movie star, like the good guy who saves everybody. Now standing in the shadow of Victoria's empire, Marcus wondered if he was the hero, or just another character in someone else's story. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and ambition. Executives in expensive suits glided past like they owned the air they breathed. Behind the reception desk, a woman with perfect teeth and predatory smile watched him approach. Marcus Rivera, he said. I have an appointment with Ms. Sterling. The receptionist's eyes traveled from his shoes to his face, cataloging every detail. Of course, Mr. Rivera. Top floor, she's waiting. The elevator ride felt like ascending to heaven, or judgment. Floor numbers climbed. 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 41, 42. The doors opened to reveal a space that redefined the word office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Elliott Bay. The furniture looked like it belonged in a museum. And there, standing by the window in a burgundy dress that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly salary, was Victoria Sterling. She turned as he entered, and her smile made something flutter in his chest. You clean up nice, Mr. Rivera. The suit helps. He walked toward her, surprised by how natural it felt to be in this space with her. This view is intimidating, overwhelming, pretentious, lonely. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Excuse me? All this space, all this height. It's like being in a tower. Beautiful, but... Marcus moved to stand beside her at the window. When was the last time you could just walk outside and talk to a neighbor? She was quiet for a long moment, watching the city below. I can't remember. When was the last time someone told you the truth instead of what you wanted to hear? This morning, when you called me pretentious. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And you were right. She turned to face him fully. Do you want to know why I really offered you this job, Marcus? His stomach clenched. Here it came. The real reason, the catch, the thing that would make him feel stupid for believing in fairy tales. Because I've been watching you for 6 months, Victoria said quietly. Not just at the diner. I had my people look into you after the first time I saw you with Danny. Do you know what they found? Marcus shook his head, not trusting his voice. They found a man who's never missed a rent payment, even when it meant eating ramen for a week. A man who volunteers at the food bank on Thanksgiving instead of working overtime because some families need it more. A man who's been taking online college courses for 4 years, studying business management and computer security, because he refuses to believe this is all he can be. The room suddenly felt too small, too warm. Why does any of that matter to you? Victoria walked to her desk, picked up a framed photograph. A little girl with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin, standing next to a man in soot-covered overalls. My father died when I was 8. Lung cancer from 20 years in the coal mines. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat, just like you're doing now. She handed him the photo. The man's face was weathered but kind, his hands gentle on the little girl's shoulders. Before he died, He made my mother promise him something, that she'd never let me forget where I came from. That success without compassion is just expensive loneliness. Marcus stared at the photo, seeing pieces of Victoria's childhood in the faded colors. What happened to her? Your mother. She died 5 years ago, worked herself to death trying to prove she was worthy of the life I'd built. Victoria's voice cracked slightly. I gave her a mansion and a trust fund, but what she really wanted was for me to come home for Sunday dinner, to remember what it felt like to be part of a family instead of a corporation. The silence stretched between them, filled with understanding. So you see, Victoria continued, when I offered you this job, it wasn't charity. It was selfishness. I need someone who remembers what matters. I need someone who won't let me disappear into this tower. Marcus set the photo down gently. And you think I'm that someone? I think you're the only man I've met in 5 years who looked Richard Blackwood in the eye and made him blink first. I think you're the only person who's ever called my office pretentious and still got invited up here. She stepped closer. And I think your father and mine would have been friends. Something shifted in the air between them. A recognition, a possibility, a door opening to something neither had expected to find. There's something else, Victoria said, her voice softer now. About Danny's surgery. Marcus tensed. What about it? Dr. Peterson moved it up to Thursday. The insurance papers are already filed. Everything's approved. This Thursday? But that's only 3 days. Danny's been having episodes, Marcus, small ones, but they're getting more frequent. Dr. Peterson doesn't want to wait. The floor tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of her desk. Episodes? What kind of episodes? Shortness of breath, fatigue. The school nurse called my office Friday. They had you listed as an emergency contact, but when they couldn't reach you, I was working. The words came out hollow. I was working, and my son was, he's fine, but he won't be if we wait much longer. Marcus sank into one of the leather chairs that probably cost more than his truck. I should have known. I should have seen the signs. Victoria moved around her desk, perched on the edge in front of him. You've been working 4 jobs to save your son's life. You're not Superman, Marcus. You're just a father who loves his child. A father who almost missed the fact that his child was dying. A father who did everything humanly possible to prevent it. She reached out, hesitated, then gently touched his hand. Danny's going to be fine. Dr. Peterson has a 98% success rate. The surgery will take 4 hours, recovery time is 6 weeks, and then your son will be able to run and play like any other 7-year-old. Marcus looked down at her hand on his. Small, soft, with perfectly manicured nails that had never known real work. But the touch was warm, real, comforting in a way that made his chest tight. I don't know how to thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet. You haven't heard the rest. Marcus's head snapped up. The rest? Victoria's expression grew serious. Richard Blackwood didn't just approach me randomly at that coffee shop. He's been trying to force a hostile takeover of Sterling Innovations for 6 months. Having you on my security team isn't just about protecting the company. It's about protecting your family, too. What do you mean? Men like Richard don't forget being humiliated, and they don't forgive. Victoria stood, walked back to the window. I've given you a job, Marcus, but I've also painted a target on your back, on Danny's back. The flutter in Marcus's chest turned to ice. What are you saying? I'm saying that accepting my offer means entering my world completely, the good parts and the dangerous ones. She turned back to him. I'm saying that if you take this job, there's no going back to being invisible. Marcus stood slowly, processing the weight of what she was telling him. And if I don't take the job? Danny gets the surgery anyway. The insurance is already approved. You go back to your 4 jobs, and I pretend we never had this conversation. But, Victoria's smile was sad. But you'll always wonder what if. And I'll go back to eating alone in that diner every Sunday watching the empty booth where you and Danny used to sit. The choice hung between them like a bridge. Cross it and risk everything, or stay safe and lose the possibility of something extraordinary. Marcus thought about his father, about 17 people saved from a burning building, about a little girl named Victoria who asked if angels were real. "When do I start?" he asked. Victoria's smile could have powered the entire building. "You already have." She pressed a button on her desk. "Janet, please send up the security briefing files. Mr. Rivera needs to know what he's protecting." As the door closed behind her assistant's departure, Victoria moved closer to Marcus, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something expensive but not overwhelming. "One more thing," she said. "Thursday, when Danny has his surgery, I'll be in that waiting room with you, not as your boss, not as Victoria Sterling, CEO, just as the little girl your father saved, making sure his son comes home safe." Marcus looked into those green eyes and realized that somewhere between the coffee shop and this moment, everything had changed. He was no longer just fighting for Danny's life. He was fighting for a future he'd never dared to imagine. But outside, 42 floors below, Richard Blackwood sat in his Bentley with a phone to his ear. "The pieces are in position," he said. "Sterling thinks she's so clever using Rivera as her shield. She has no idea what's coming." The voice on the other end was cold, calculating. "And the boy?" "Surgery Thursday morning. Children's Hospital, VIP wing." Richard's smile was cruel. Such a shame if there were complications. The game was no longer just about money or power. Now it was about blood. Tuesday morning brought chaos wrapped in expensive suits. Marcus arrived at Sterling Innovations at 7:30 a.m., 2 hours before his official start time. The security briefing files Victoria had sent home were spread across his kitchen table until 2 a.m. Corporate espionage, hostile takeovers, and a web of financial manipulation that made his head spin. But it was the final document that had kept him awake. A private investigator's report on Richard Blackwood. 27 companies destroyed. 15 families bankrupted. 3 suspicious deaths ruled accidents. Danny's surgery was in 48 hours. The executive floor buzzed with an energy Marcus hadn't expected. Victoria stood at the center of it all, commanding a room full of Harvard MBAs, like a general preparing for war. She wore a charcoal gray suit that meant business, her auburn hair pulled back severe enough to cut glass. "Market opens in 90 minutes, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the conference room. "Blackwood's people will try to trigger a panic cell. I want our communications team ready with counter-narratives. I want legal prepared for 17 different scenarios. And I want security." Her eyes found Marcus standing in the doorway. Something flickered across her face, relief maybe, or something warmer. "I want security to sweep every floor, every office, every computer terminal. Find me whatever Blackwood planted." She turned back to the room. "Questions?" A man in a $3,000 suit raised his hand. "Victoria, with respect, we're talking about Richard Blackwood. The man owns half the judges in this city. Maybe we should consider his offer before—" "Before what, Hutchinson?" Victoria's voice could have frozen the sound. "Before he destroys another company? Before he puts 8,000 people out of work? Before he sells our patents to overseas competitors?" Hutchinson shifted uncomfortably. "I'm just saying a strategic retreat might—" "There is no retreat." Victoria stepped forward, and Marcus saw what had built a billion-dollar empire. Pure, focused will. This company was built by people who refused to retreat. My father died in a mine because men like Blackwood prioritize profit over safety. I will not let his memory be sold to the highest bidder. The room went quiet. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. Admiration mixed with something deeper, more dangerous. "Marcus," Victoria said without looking at him, "I need to speak with you privately." The executives filed out, but not before Marcus caught Hutchinson's expression. Resentment, calculation, the look of a man who'd already chosen sides. When they were alone, Victoria's steel facade cracked. She sagged against the conference table, suddenly looking every one of her 35 years. "How bad is it?" Marcus asked. "Worse than I let on. Blackwood's been planning this for 18 months. He's bought 3 board members, planted spies in our IT department, and somehow got access to our quarterly projections before we announced them. Marcus moved closer. What does he want? Everything. The company, the patents, the building. Victoria looked up at him, and he saw fear there, real fear. But mostly he wants to hurt me. I humiliated him in that coffee shop, and men like Richard don't forgive. So we fight. We? Victoria's eyebrow arched. I took the job. I signed the contract. I'm in this with you. Marcus straightened his tie, a nervous habit he'd developed since wearing expensive clothes. What do you need me to do? Victoria studied his face like she was memorizing it. I need you to do something that might destroy your life. Explain. She pulled out a tablet, swiped to a video file. Security footage from Blackwood Holdings 3 nights ago. One of our contacts in their IT department sent it. The video showed Richard Blackwood in his office speaking to someone off camera. The audio was clear enough to make Marcus's blood run cold. The boy's surgery is Thursday morning. Children's Hospital VIP wing. It would be tragic if there were complications during such a delicate procedure. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. He's threatening Danny. Not just threatening, planning. Victoria paused the video. We traced the IP addresses. Blackwood's people have been trying to hack the hospital system, accessing surgical schedules, patient records, even the electronic systems that control anesthesia. The conference room suddenly felt airless. You're saying he'd hurt a 7-year-old boy to get back at you? I'm saying Richard Blackwood doesn't see Danny as a 7-year-old boy. He sees him as leverage. Victoria stood, began pacing. Which is why I need you to make a choice that no father should ever have to make. Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. What choice? We could move Danny to a private facility, hire our own surgical team, complete security. Victoria stopped pacing, met his eyes. But it would mean using Danny as bait. Absolutely not. Marcus, listen. No. He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. I won't use my son to fight your battles. Victoria's face flushed. My battles? You think this is about me? Isn't it? Rich people fighting over money while the rest of us get caught in the crossfire. The words hung between them like a slap. Victoria went very still, very quiet. When she spoke, her voice carried hurt that made Marcus's chest ache. Is that what you think of me? That I'm just another rich person playing games? Marcus opened his mouth to apologize, but she held up a hand. Let me show you something else. She pulled up another file on the tablet. Financial records, charitable donations, scholarship funds. Sterling Foundation has put 400 kids through college. We've funded 17 free clinics. We've provided job training for 2,000 people transitioning out of homelessness. She swiped again. More documents, more proof of a life spent giving back. Every dollar Blackwood steals from this company is a dollar that doesn't go to families like yours. Every patent he sells is a piece of technology that could save lives, improve lives, change lives. Victoria's voice cracked. So yes, Marcus, these are my battles. But they're also battles for every person who needs what we can provide. Marcus felt shame burn in his throat. Victoria, and as for Danny being bait? She turned the tablet around, showing him hospital blueprints marked with security positions. I've already hired 12 private security guards. Dr. Peterson has been briefed on every possible threat. The surgical suite will be swept for electronics 3 times before the procedure begins. She set the tablet down, looked at him with eyes that held too much understanding. I'm not asking you to risk your son, Marcus. I'm asking you to trust me to protect him while we end this once and for all. The silence stretched between them, filled with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Marcus spoke. What do you need me to do? Victoria's smile was worth more than the salary she was paying him. I need you to be exactly who you are. A man who won't be intimidated. A man who fights for what matters. And I need you to trust that sometimes the best way to protect someone you love is to stand up to the people trying to hurt them. Marcus thought about his father, about 17 people saved from a burning building. about courage that comes not from fearlessness but from love that's stronger than fear. Okay, he said. I'm in. All the way. Victoria reached across the space between them, took his hand. Her fingers were warm, soft, but her grip was steady, strong. Together? She asked. Together. But neither of them saw Hutchinson in the hallway outside, phone pressed to his ear, reporting every word to Richard Blackwood. The trap was set. The pieces were in motion. And Thursday morning was 36 hours away. Thursday morning, 6:47 a.m. Children's Hospital VIP wing. Marcus Rivera sat in the family waiting area, his hands clasped so tight his knuckles had gone white. Danny had been in surgery for 2 hours and 13 minutes. Dr. Peterson said 4 hours total. Marcus was counting every second. Victoria sat beside him, trading her usual designer dress for jeans and a sweater that made her look younger, more human. She'd been there since 5 a.m., bringing coffee Marcus couldn't taste and magazines neither of them could read. He's going to be fine, she said for the dozenth time. Dr. Peterson has done this procedure 400 times. Danny's young, strong. Victoria. Marcus's voice was raw. You don't have to keep talking. She nodded, squeezed his hand. They sat in silence, watching the clock crawl toward 8 a.m. That's when Richard Blackwood walked in. He wore a navy suit that cost more than most people's cars and carried himself like he owned the building. Behind him followed 2 men in cheaper suits with the hard eyes of expensive muscle. Mr. Rivera, Ms. Sterling. Richard's smile belonged on a shark. How lovely to find you both here. Such a dedicated boss, supporting her employee during difficult times. Marcus stood slowly, every muscle in his body coiled. Get out. Now. This is a public hospital. I have every right to visit sick children. Richard's eyes gleamed with malice. Speaking of which, how is little Danny? I hear heart surgery is so risky at his age. Victoria rose beside Marcus, her hand on his arm. What do you want, Richard? Want? I want nothing but the best for this family. He pulled out a tablet, swiped to a document. In fact, I'm prepared to offer Mr. Rivera a very generous settlement. $5 million to disappear. Quietly. Permanently. Marcus felt the floor tilt. What? $5 million, Mr. Rivera. More than enough to pay for Danny's surgery and set you both up for life. All you have to do is quit your job and sign this little non-disclosure agreement. The waiting room went silent except for the sound of machines keeping someone alive in the distance. Marcus stared at the number on the tablet. $5 million. More money than he'd ever dreamed of. There's just one catch, Richard continued. You have 30 seconds to decide. Because if you don't take this offer, if you continue working for Ms. Sterling, I'm afraid there might be complications with Danny's surgery. Victoria stepped forward. You're threatening a child. I'm threatening nothing. I'm simply pointing out that hospital equipment can be so unreliable. Computer systems fail. Power grids malfunction. Such tragic accidents happen every day. Marcus looked at the tablet, then at Richard Blackwood's smug face. $5 million. Danny's surgery paid for. College funded. A house in a good neighborhood. Security for life. All he had to do was walk away from the woman who'd saved his son. Walk away from the job that made him feel like more than invisible. Walk away from the possibility of something extraordinary. 20 seconds, Mr. Rivera. Marcus thought about his father, about a burning building and 17 lives saved, about a little girl who asked if angels were real. He thought about Victoria's hand in his, about the way she'd fought for her company, for her employees, for people she'd never met. He thought about Danny in that surgical suite, trusting his dad to make the right choice. 10 seconds. Marcus Rivera took the tablet from Richard Blackwood's hands. He looked at the screen one more time. $5 million. Then he dropped it on the floor and crushed it under his heel. Go to hell, he said. Richard's face went purple with rage. You have no idea what you've just done. No idea what I've just done, Marcus said, stepping closer until Richard had to look up at him, is choose my son's future over your blood money. Your son won't have a future if... Marcus grabbed Richard by the collar of his expensive suit, lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing at all. The two bodyguards moved forward, but Victoria's voice stopped them cold. I wouldn't. She held up her phone, showing them the video call she'd been streaming. Say hello to the FBI. They're very interested in your boss's threats against a 7-year-old boy. Richard's eyes went wide as he realized the trap. Every threat, every offer, every word had been recorded. But Marcus wasn't done. He carried Richard to the window, pressed his face against the glass. 4 stories down, news vans were pulling into the parking lot. You want to know who I am? Marcus said, his voice deadly quiet. I'll tell you exactly who I am. He turned to face the gathering crowd. Hospital staff, other families, security guards, reporters who'd gotten word of the confrontation. 23 people total, all staring at the scene unfolding in the VIP waiting room. My name is Marcus Rivera, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. I'm 32 years old. I clean office buildings at night and serve food during the day. I work 80 hours a week for $32,000 a year because that's what it takes to keep my son alive. Richard struggled in his grip, but Marcus held firm. This man offered me $5 million to abandon the woman who saved my boy's life. $5 million to walk away from the first job that ever made me feel like I mattered. $5 million to let him destroy the company that employs 8,000 people. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. You want to know what a man's worth, Mr. Blackwood? Marcus's voice rose, filled with 17 years of swallowed pride and suppressed rage. A man's worth isn't in his wallet. It's in his willingness to stand up for what's right even when it costs him everything. He released Richard, who stumbled backward. My father died saving 17 people from a burning building. He never asked what they could pay him. He never asked if they deserved saving. He just did what was right. Marcus looked around the room, meeting every eye. And I'd rather be broke and proud than rich and ashamed. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then someone started clapping. A nurse, then a security guard, then a family waiting for their own news. Within seconds, the entire room erupted in applause. Victoria stared at Marcus with something in her eyes that made his chest tight, warm, complete. Richard Blackwood straightened his tie, his face twisted with fury. This isn't over. Yes, Victoria said quietly. It is. She held up her phone again, showing him the live stream that had just broadcast his threats and Marcus's response to 40,000 viewers. By the time your lawyers get to court, every news outlet in the country will have this video. Your board of directors will see it. Your investors will see it. Your wife will see it. Richard looked at the phone, then at the crowd still applauding Marcus, then at the FBI agents walking through the door. You have the right to remain silent, Agent Martinez said, producing handcuffs. Though given what we just heard, that ship might have sailed. As they led Richard away, Dr. Peterson appeared in surgical scrubs. His smile said everything before he spoke a word. Danny's surgery was perfect. Complete success. He's asking for his dad. Marcus felt his knees give out. Victoria caught him, held him up, held him together as 17 years of fear and responsibility and desperate love finally found release. Can I see him? Marcus whispered. He's awake and demanding pancakes. Dr. Peterson grinned. That's a very good sign. As Marcus walked toward his son's room, Victoria beside him, he realized something had changed forever. Not just Danny's heart. That would heal in 6 weeks. But Marcus Rivera, invisible janitor, had become Marcus Rivera, the man who chose love over money, courage over comfort, hope over fear. And the woman walking beside him had been worth every risk, every fight, every moment of terror. But the best part was yet to come. 3 weeks later, Danny Rivera sat in Victoria Sterling's office, 42 floors above Seattle, his surgical scar hidden beneath a Superman t-shirt. He was building a tower out of paper clips while his father and Victoria discussed security protocols for the company's expansion. The Barcelona office needs a complete digital overhaul, Victoria was saying, but her eyes kept drifting to Danny's architectural project. I'm thinking we send a team for 6 months, establish protocols, train local security. Marcus nodded, making notes on his tablet. 3 weeks as head of security had taught him more about corporate protection than 4 years of night classes. Barcelona's a good choice. Far enough from Blackwood's reach, close enough to maintain oversight. Plus, Victoria added with a smile, they have excellent pediatric cardiologists, just in case we need a second opinion on someone's recovery. Danny looked up from his paperclip tower. Are we going to Spain, Dad? Marcus exchanged glances with Victoria. They'd been dancing around the subject for days. The job offer, the opportunity, the chance to start fresh somewhere new. Would you want to go to Spain, buddy? Do they have soccer there? Victoria laughed. They invented it there. Then yes. Danny returned to his construction project. But only if Victoria comes too. She's part of our family now. The words hung in the air like morning mist. Beautiful, fragile, full of possibility. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Danny, Victoria has her own life, her own... Actually, Victoria interrupted, I've been thinking about opening a European headquarters. Someone would need to run it. Marcus stared at her. You'd leave Seattle? Leave all this? Victoria looked around her office, the marble floors, the museum-quality furniture, the view that stretched to the horizon. You know what I realized sitting in that hospital waiting room? What? This isn't a life. It's a beautiful prison. She stood, walked to the window. I built all this to prove I was worth something, but I forgot what I was trying to prove I was worth. Danny abandoned his paper clips, wandered over to them. My dad says worth isn't about money. It's about love. Victoria knelt down to Danny's eye level. Your dad is very smart. The smartest and the bravest. Did you know he faced down a bad man to protect me? I heard about that. Victoria's eyes found Marcus over Danny's head. It was very impressive. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. I was just doing what any father would do. No, Victoria said softly. You were doing what the best fathers do. Danny looked between them with the keen awareness that 7-year-olds possess about adult emotions. Are you going to marry my dad? Victoria's face turned crimson. Marcus choked on his coffee. Danny, Marcus sputtered. You can't just ask people. Why not? Mrs. Chen says when grown-ups look at each other the way you two do, they usually get married. And she's been married for 37 years, so she knows about these things. Victoria recovered first. Well, Danny, marriage is complicated. Adults have to think about jobs and houses and... Do you love him? Danny asked with the brutal directness of childhood. Victoria looked at Marcus, really looked at him. The man who'd counted $6 tips to buy his son breakfast, who'd worked 4 jobs and still found time to volunteer at food banks, who'd faced down a billionaire bully without blinking. Yes, she said simply. I love him very much. Marcus felt the world shift, realign, settle into a configuration that finally made sense. Dad? Danny prompted. Marcus looked at Victoria Sterling. Brilliant, beautiful, powerful enough to move mountains but humble enough to eat alone in diners. The woman who'd saved his son and maybe his soul. Yes, Danny, I love her too. Danny clapped his hands together. So when's the wedding? Both adults laughed, the tension breaking like fever. Marriage is a big step, buddy, Marcus said. People need time to... How much time? Victoria asked. Marcus blinked. What? How much time do we need? Victoria stepped closer. I know what I want, Marcus. I want Sunday morning pancakes at Danny's diner. I want to come home to people who care more about my heart than my bank account. I want to build something real with someone real. Victoria, I want you, both of you, as much as you'll have me. Danny looked up at his father expectantly. Marcus Rivera, who'd spent 17 years believing he wasn't good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, finally understood what his father had tried to teach him. A man's worth isn't measured by what he takes, but by what he gives, even when he has nothing left to give. Marcus had given everything, his pride, his fear, his carefully guarded heart. And somehow, impossibly, it had been enough. "Victoria Sterling," he said, getting down on one knee right there in her corner office. "Will you marry a janitor from Building 4, Unit 2B? Victoria's smile could have powered the city. "Only if he promises to keep me humble." "Deal." Danny threw his arms around both of them, completing a circle that had started 28 years ago in a burning building, when a man in overalls saved a little girl who grew up to save his son. 6 months later, they stood on a beach in Barcelona, exchanging vows in front of Danny and a handful of friends. Victoria wore a simple white dress. Marcus wore his father's watch. Danny wore his Superman cape because superheroes, he explained, always attend important events in costume. "Do you, Marcus Rivera, take Victoria Sterling to be your wife? To love and protect, in poverty and wealth, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live?" Marcus looked at the woman who'd changed his life by asking a simple question in a coffee shop. "I do." "Do you, Victoria Sterling, take Marcus Rivera to be your husband? To love and cherish in poverty and wealth, in sickness and health, for as long as you both shall live?" Victoria thought about her father in the coal mines, her mother working 3 jobs, a little girl who'd asked if angels were real. "I do." As they kissed, Danny cheered, and somewhere in heaven, 2 working-class parents smiled down at their children who'd learned that love doesn't care about tax brackets. The paperboy who delivered their wedding announcement in Barcelona would later tell his grandchildren about the headline, "Billionaire CEO marries security chief in sunset ceremony." But Danny Rivera, age 7 3/4, knew the real story. It wasn't about a CEO and a security chief. It wasn't about rich and poor or power and position. It was about his dad, who'd counted $6 tips to buy pancakes, and the angel who'd been waiting 28 years to find her way home. Some fairy tales, Danny learned, were worth waiting for, and some angels wore overalls and worked overtime, inspired by stories of courage we hear every day, dramatized and illustrated with artificial intelligence.